There are several things that are pretty much confirmed to be the next Doom game, like the return of the makers and the new monster truck gameplay style, but there's also a lot of unconfirmed things that the game will probably end up having as well, and those features could make the game better than Doom Eternal. I personally believe that Doom Year Zero was cancelled a few years ago, but whether it's Year Zero or something entirely different, the next title in the Doom franchise desperately needs to include Deathmatch, one of the most highly requested features from Eternal. The game has a pretty solid amount of replayable single-player content, but I think most people agree that it was really lacking when it came to the multiplayer side of things, with iconic game modes and community content being noticeably absent. While I do think that Battle Mode had a pretty good foundation and could have been really solid if a pandemic hadn't affected post-launch development, a single game mode was never really enough to satisfy the community and give everyone the full Doom experience, which is exactly why the next game will need to have a Slayer vs Slayer deathmatch mode. This sort of community-based content is what really extends a game's lifespan and allows users to keep having fun even years after the game stops getting support. Eternal really would have benefited from this, and I think id Software knows that. Many people complain that 2016's multiplayer was too far removed from the campaign, and even more complain that Eternal lacked the ability to fight with and alongside one or more Doomslayers. So the only logical solution to this problem is the implementation of more fan-favorite multiplayer modes that utilize the campaign's combat, like Deathmatch and Co-op. I would say that some form of co-op was easily the second most requested feature for Doom Eternal. The community asked for it so much that they apparently considered making Horde mode a co-op experience before ultimately deciding on single player. I definitely understand that making an entire co-op campaign may not be the easiest thing to do, but they honestly wouldn't even need to go to that extent. Having a small handful of multiplayer missions would likely satisfy the majority of the community. They could either make levels exclusively for the mode or just reuse campaign content. Either one would get the job done while adding a huge amount of replayability in the process. If both Horde mode and Battle mode returned on top of the new additions, it could easily make this the definitive modern Doom experience, overshadowing 2016 and Eternal in the multiplayer department. But in order to really be the ultimate game, it needs to include one of Doom's most integral elements, community-made content. I unfortunately don't think that mod support is very likely since it's a bit tricky to add in both a practical and legal sense, although they could easily make up for this with Snap Map, something Eternal decided to completely remove. A full level maker with the possibility to produce an endless amount of content would keep the game going for years. Could you imagine how insane it would be to have Eternal's combat in 2016 Snap Map? The modded master levels and slaughter maps were a really big hit within the community, but those are only available to PC players. Giving the entire player base the tools to create content alongside a solid amount of official multiplayer modes really would make the next Doom game the best we've ever seen. All of those requests are coming directly from the Doom community. We've all been begging for this type of replayable content for the past few years, but most of us will be more than happy with something a bit smaller like a master level campaign. The idea of remixing campaign levels and making them incredibly challenging will likely become a franchise staple after how successful and popular master levels were in Eternal. It wouldn't be surprising to see them give their next game a complete list of improved levels as additional bonus content. As long as another widespread world event doesn't impact the game's post-launch development, there's almost no reason for them to not keep these coming. They are perfect for the players to stick around and master the experience after launch. But replayable content isn't all the next title needs. Eternal does still have a handful of things that should be improved upon going forwards. After game director Hugo Martin introduced the idea of a slightly slower but more destructive gameplay style, a full environmental destruction system has been a must-have feature for me and many others. Being able to destroy certain parts of the arena during combat would not only make the Doomslayer feel more powerful and destructive, but it could also add an entirely new level of depth to the combat, with certain things like jump pads, monkey bars, and important resources being hidden inside various structures. This sort of system would pair incredibly well with secret hunting and exploration, which is something that Eternal unfortunately doesn't do incredibly well. Most of the game's secrets aren't very difficult to find, and the sections between arenas are still mostly uninteresting, although things like the optional Gore Nest and Slayer Gates definitely help. 2016 had a big problem with bland segments between arenas, and Eternal certainly improved on that, but I still don't think they've managed to nail it down just yet. I am a fan of the platforming segments, and I do think that they should return, but they need to decrease their frequency and introduce more unique combat encounters to keep the flow going outside of arenas. Aside from cool stuff like arena destruction and double glory kills, there's also a few improvements that could be made based off of the community's criticism of Eternal, like a more balanced selection of weapon mods. Both games have a good handful of mods that are inarguably better for casual players than their alternative, making things like the full auto shotgun and microwave beam nothing more than a novelty for a good portion of a player base. It would be better for everyone if each mod could offer something incredibly valuable that gives players a reason to constantly swap between both, since that's how you're supposed to be playing the game anyways. Eternal definitely had better weapon mod balancing during the QuakeCon 2018 gameplay demo, but the introduction of weak points and specific enemy weaknesses made some of the mods obsolete. Hopefully they can get everything figured out this time around. They should also make sure the game is more tightly balanced with as few bugs as possible. Eternal launched with various issues like the hit registration glitch and still has some of him almost 4 years later. As you can see on screen, sometimes blood punches, staggers, glory kills, and even the basic punches don't register properly. Things like this need to be ironed out before the next game launches. Another fairly big complaint is the story featured in Eternal. While most can agree that the amount is acceptable, the quality was shaky at times and it only got worse in the expansions. They really need to hire a lore master to keep track of everything and help the writers form a more cohesive and satisfying narrative that manages to give players what they want while staying within the bounds of pre-established lore. This could help them prevent things like the unnecessary story decisions and poorly done plot twists from the ancient gods, and pretty much everyone would benefit from this. The community honestly didn't have a whole lot of complaints with Eternal, so they can fix a few big ones and properly implement the replayable content, then I genuinely think they can create an almost unbeatable Doom game. It may not be Doom Year Zero, but I guarantee that they'll be able to deliver a very solid product that can give us things we've been begging for the past few years, like Deathmatch and Snap Map. We actually may finally get to see this game in action next month, as a lot of really big Doom related things are happening in less than 3 weeks. There's a lot of content that Doom fans won't want to miss. Click on the video that's on screen now to find out more. Thank you all so much for watching today's video, I hope you enjoyed it. That's pretty much all that I have for now though. Until next time.